Hundreds of meters below the surface, military submarines do covert and secretive work. They keep their nation's seas safe, but they operate in a place where problems can cost lives. That risk has proved all too real in the past. But submarine rescue systems are the answer, and 2017 has seen one in particular pushed to its absolute limits. The NATO Submarine Rescue System is a submariner's insurance policy. The NSRS may have a futuristic look, but the British, French and Norwegian system is very much a reality. You don't need to look back far to understand why having this system is important. In August 2000, an explosion sank the Kursk, a Russian submarine. Some of the crew survived the initial blast, but despite the relatively shallow waters, all hands were lost. After the disaster, new technology was developed, including the NATO Submarine Rescue System. The system has three parts. An immediate remote operated vehicle, or IROV, deploys first to deliver supplies. Then NEMO, the Submarine Rescue Vehicle, or SRV, dives to rescue the submariners. They're then brought to the transfer under pressure system, huge high pressure or hyperbaric chambers. NATO's 350-ton sub-rescue system can be fitted to hundreds of different ships, and it can be deployed worldwide in 72 hours by air, land and sea.
When we leave Faslane, it leaves in 22 trucks, and we then bring it to the airport of departure, in this case Prestwick Airport, where we load it into a variety of different aircraft. But we do need quite a lot of aircraft, because 350 tonnes of equipment is quite challenging to move.
Moving all the kit is a huge endeavour. In February 2017, the system is on its way to Norway for Exercise Northern Sun. It's the first time the system has been air mobilised for 6 years. Evenes Airport, 1,200 miles away on the Norwegian coast, the destination. It's the beginning of a big year of tough challenges.
There were times where the runway was out of spec for landing aeroplanes, and then actually bringing all of the kit and mounting it on board the ship. So it's welded down to the ship's deck, which obviously at temperatures down below freezing is a bit of a challenge, but everything has come on board and it's worked really well. But we are right at the edge of the operating envelope for mobilising the kit.
300 miles into the Arctic Circle, Nemo deploys from a Norwegian Coast Guard vessel. Exercise Northern Sun is underway, and the submarine rescue vehicle dives deep into the chilly waters. 2017 is testing the system to its limits. Exercise Northern Sun 17 is perhaps the biggest test the NSRS has ever faced so far. They have, of course, used the system here in Norway several times before, but never at this time of year. And never this far north. Air temperatures in February 2017 have averaged minus 15 degrees Celsius. The Arctic Circle pushes the boundaries of the personnel and the kit.
You can see I've got my thermals on here. We're not used to this weather, that's for sure. It's been very cold for us and for the boat as well. We've had lots of heaters in the boat, trying to keep all the systems warm. It's been challenging.
With the sun setting at 3:30, Norwegian nights are long and days short. Submarine rescue has never been conducted in these conditions. But the team need to know the kit can work here if it's ever needed for real. Dive conditions for the exercise are a challenge. Through the darkness, they find Norwegian submarine, the Utsira. She's 127 metres down and in simulated distress. The pilots of Nemo must mate with the submarine to rescue its inhabitants.
When you look at all of the parameters you need to do a real rescue in significant sea state, maybe 7 metres, and support life, make the rescue and having the equipment on board to allow you to do the rescue safely and give you the tools to go into the fire, that's the machine. She's like putting on a suit of armour.
Norway shares a land and sea border with Russia. That border is just a few hundred miles from here. There is a deep awareness of the need for a system to save submariners. And Exercise Northern Sun is about providing that reassurance for the submarine service. That even if their boat gets into distress in the Arctic Circle, they can be rescued.
The system gives us confidence that we can be looked after. Of course, basic submarining is always about not getting into those kinds of situations. But if so, it's nice to know, and for the crew and for the families, that there is a concept.
Welcome to the dive brief for SRV dive number 240.
The manpower for NSRS comes from 3 countries. There are civilian and Navy personnel, regular and reservists. The team play to their own country's strengths, but the roles are interchangeable. An unusual relationship, but one that works.
Of course, you can share the cost, that is good. And also, all 3 navies can learn from each other. We have some different procedures, some different thoughts about things. And then it's good to share experiences. And yeah, I think it will benefit everyone, and everyone gets better.
Exercising at sea in the Arctic Circle is a rare opportunity for the international teams of divers and submariners. Many train as rescue chamber operators, or RCOs, effectively underwater paramedics on board an underwater ambulance.
Hey. Oh, good man.
When they see our face, when we open their hatch, we'll be the first point of contact. So you've got to prepare yourself in case. They're going to be stressed out, they're going to be a bit scared, so you've got to prepare yourself for that.
To become fully qualified, you have to do a submarine hatch opening. So that doesn't come around that often. So it's great when you do get something like this. You can get quite a few people trained up in.
Submarine rescue isn't cheap. The systems themselves cost tens of millions of pounds. A rescue could cost millions more. It's a life insurance policy and a rare example of real international cooperation.
Being tri-national, we're not like part of a political pawn. We're not a UK system. We belong to the 3 nations. So other countries who operate submarines will approach us on a tri-national basis. You're not dealing with one particular country, you're dealing with the 3 countries together.
The Arctic Circle provided the most challenging conditions the NATO Submarine Rescue System has ever exercised in. The British, French and Norwegian piece of kit proved ready to rescue its own submariners. But it wasn't the only big test this year. It's said that we know more about space than the deepest parts of our oceans. Submarines manoeuvre in this secretive world. For the crew inside them, it's a job with risk. But submariners have an insurance policy, a British, French and Norwegian piece of kit that can rescue them more than 600 metres down. The NATO Submarine Rescue System, NSRS. It's made up of an IROV, a robot that delivers supplies to the stricken sub, Nemo, the submarine rescue vehicle which saves them from the ocean depths, and the transfer under pressure system, hyperbaric chambers that treat submariners for the bends. It's all important, but the key to bringing up stricken sailors is Nemo.
Dives to 610 metres. She's powered by electrical main propulsion, which you can see on the back there. We've got 2 main propulsion units on the back. We've also got side thrusters, which are hydraulic power. We've got bow and stern thrusters as well, which are also hydraulic power. Down the side we've got some trim weights. We use these for gaining different angles to allow us to mate to submarines that are at different angles. This is our dry mating skirt and the seal underneath. So this is what actually creates the seal onto the submarine. You've got a lip seal here, double lip seal there. When we thrust down onto the submarines, we'll pump some water from inside the skirt out to sea, and that creates a differential pressure and energises this little seal. As first pilot, you would sit at the front here and control from the front once you're actually dived. So this is their main control panel for operating when we're dived. 2 main joysticks. One controls all the thrusters, so we can thrust up or down, we can move the whole boat, port or starboard, and it's got a twisty knob on the top as well, and we can use that to just pivot the boat round on its centre axis. We've got 5 cameras in the boat. We've only got 3 monitors, so we can pick 3 that we're looking at. So we've got 1 camera that's in the rescue chamber, which we can keep an eye on what's going on in the back there. We've got 1 camera that's in the centre of the skirt looking down. We've got one that's almost next to the skirt that's looking out in front of the boat and seeing the kind of belly of the sub. And the other one is pointing, looking. It's as if, from the pilot's point of view, it's as if you're looking through your legs underneath the boat and looking at the skirt, and that gives you that view. Can take 12 rescuees at the moment. So you can see with 12 people in here, we're quite crammed in, but probably better than a situation of where they might have come from. Sit here, shut hatch 1 again, go back to the surface, and then from there we'll transfer the rescuees into the TUP through the hatch at the back of the submarine there.
To give rescued submariners the best chance of survival, there are 5 pressurized chambers they can be moved between in order to aid their recovery and bring their bodies back to normal surface pressure. The chambers are run by regular and reservist submariners and divers. They're on high readiness to deploy.
It's amazing that the UK are the only people that employ reservists to do NSRS, but it's a role quite suited to the reservists as long as your employer buys into the idea and you go into the high readiness list. It's like you can fly anywhere in the world at relatively short notice.
This technology is world class, but no matter how good your kit is, it still needs to be tested. And 2017 has been a big year for the NATO Submarine Rescue System. In February, it dived in the coldest waters it's ever faced in Norway. And now it's having to prove itself again, 2,000 miles away in a hot and humid Turkey. It might not look like it, but this is a submarine rescue, or at least a multinational simulation of one. In late summer 2017, Britain was among the nations taking part in Exercise Dynamic Monarch. The warm waters of the Eastern Mediterranean, the backdrop for the submarine rescue community to get together, rehearsing everything from finding distressed submarines to immediate response and medical care. Dynamic Monarch is the biggest submarine rescue exercise that's held across the world. This time around, there are 9 countries, more than 1,000 personnel and 20 different military assets, including submarines, rescue ships, diving teams, medical support, and a submarine parachute assistance group. This kind of cooperation was triggered by the Kursk. The Russian sub sank in August 2000. And because 118 men died, submariners around the world began to shed some of their secrecy. It meant that 5 years later, when another Russian submarine, the Pritz AS-28 became tangled in fishing nets, a British rescue system was asked to help. It freed the sub with just hours of oxygen to spare. And now that open dialogue about submarine rescue and safety continues. It's the only part of submarine operations that's actively shared.
Open source for everybody, meaning open possibility to save all life at sea. We don't have flag at sea, we care about lives of our submarines, our friends. So let me say brotherhood in submarines, so it's very important for us.
As well as new equipment, in the early 2000s, the International Submarine Escape and Rescue Liaison Office, ICE-MERLO, was formed. From that, an open-source website was launched. It gives access to the world's sub-rescue experts and equipment.
If you have a problem, you're baking a cake and you want a cup of sugar, a lot of times if you don't know your neighbor, you're not going to even ask your neighbor for a cup of sugar. And so these exercises allow you to learn who your neighbors are and allow you to kind of put the trust to be able to call them up at a moment's notice.
Exercise Dynamic Monarch has been about even more cooperation.
We have submarines. If there are going to be an accident with them, we don't have a rescue system, so we are depending on this system right here. So for us, it's very important to train and to see how everything works here.
Canada right now, we don't have submarine rescue vehicles, so this is actually my first opportunity, and I had the really good luck to actually get a ride in it yesterday down to about 81 meters.
It's easy to get excited about diving with this very special piece of kit. Hatch is closed and the mini-submarine is ready to descend. Launched from a commercial ship, the Northern River, Nemo dives to a Turkish submarine lying on the seabed in simulated distress. We've now begun our dive in the SRV and I'm sitting in the back in the rescue chamber. This is an underwater ambulance and this is where, when we rescue the injured submariners, they'll come in here for treatment before being taken up to the surface and the transfer under pressure system. A few minutes away lies the distressed submarine, more than 100 meters below the surface. If a submarine is in a collision or floods, the situation is critical. Up to 180 meters down, submariners can escape in special immersion suits. Deeper than that, and they won't survive the ascent.
This is Nemo. Comms check. Over.
Rescue vehicles like Nemo, then, are their only chance, down to 600 meters. But on Exercise Dynamic Monarch, she has to prove she can mate with a Turkish submarine. And that the personnel who travel down with her can provide that first line of medical care.
Hatch is opening. When we open the hatch for the first time, in the first run, I won't be alone. I will be with a doctor and a nurse. They are able to go into the sub to do the triage.
When you open the hatch inside the rescue chamber, that's always the worst, but I think it's far more worse for the submariners to open their hatch when they're laying on the bottom, because that's just wrong.
Back on deck, the SRV is manoeuvred carefully, ready to transfer her precious cargo. The ambulance now docking with its hospital, the Transfer Under Pressure System, or TUP. Inside the chamber, the team practice their casualty drills. Effectively now, they're all at the same atmospheric pressure that the submariners have been exposed to in their distressed submarine. So the casualty has been transferred straight from the back of the rescue vehicle and they're coming into here, the Transfer Under Pressure System. They haven't had to go outside, they haven't had to be shipped away to a hospital somewhere else, and they can stay at exactly the same pressure that they've been exposed to in the distressed submarine and be brought very slowly back up to the surface. This chamber can treat up to 72 submariners for decompression sickness, or the bends, caused by an increase in atmospheric pressure in a stricken submarine.
When the casualty is taken from the rescue submarine, we take them into the triage area where we'll do a quick triage of the patient. And if, like in this case, is severely injured, we'll bring him into the treatment facilities we got here in the treatment chamber.
Submariners rescued, decompression underway. The exercise is coming to an end. But with the submarine community growing around the world, this Turkish rescue is an important milestone.
It's very reassuring. The system was designed to operate in air temperatures up to 40 degrees centigrade, and this is the first time we've been able to test it in those sort of conditions. So it's given everybody on board a real sense of confidence, the operators, but also the submariners.
From the Arctic Circle to the heat and humidity of the Mediterranean, the past year has thoroughly tested the NATO Submarine Rescue System. The operators have proved it can be moved quickly and work in all weather extremes. More important than that, they've proved it stands ready to work with nations around the world to save submariners.